Is South Africa getting to a point where its property prices are also too high, particularly considering the amount of supply and demand in this country?
The big part of the reason why we have a housing shortage is because a lot of people just don't have jobs. They don't have an income. They can't afford anything better, unfortunately, than an informal dwelling. So you want to boost your economy. You want to create more jobs. You want to reduce unemployment. But at the same time, that does...
Guys, it seems that Cape Town is another city that is about to explode into something we're not able to imagine, all right? Now, according to a 2011 census, right, it says that the city of Cape Town was counted to be 3,740,026. Now, according to the demographics of the people living in Cape Town, there were 42.4 people who were colored, 38.6 who were black African, 15.7 who were white, 1.4% who were Asian or Indian, and 1.9% were counted as other. Now, from 2011 up to 2025 today, that population has actually been expanding. Actually, the amount of blacks, coloreds, Indians that have actually been moving into Cape Town has been increasing. But if you see the proportion of the blacks and the coloreds, they're actually more than the whites and the Indians. Now, it appears that this whole new visa that actually has been implemented in South Africa, the digital nomad visa, is actually pushing a lot of tourists and a lot of people who are called digital nomads. I see a lot of black Americans coming back to South Africa, especially the Cape Town as a place. Cape Town has positioned itself to be that city to really absorb this mass of taxes that will be coming from these people who operate their businesses as digital nomads. Now, it has been argued that the cost of rental costs in South Africa, rental costs in Cape Town have actually skyrocketed, and the majority of those who are unemployed, the blacks, the coloreds, I think a portion of the Indians as well, and probably a portion of the whites as well, are unable to afford the rent in Cape Town. And we might be seeing a lot of that population moving back to the townships, moving back to informal areas because they're unable to afford the rent in the city. This is actually a ticking time bomb waiting to explode in South Africa. Let's quickly listen to this interview where this property guru, I think he really spoke really clearly on the need to and the complexities to create jobs, but at the same time cater for the needs of tourists and these digital nomads and help to increase employment in South Africa amidst the high unemployment rate and all the characteristics of the whole thing we've been speaking about on this channel with BEE policies and all that. And I'll be back for a really interesting analysis on this issue.
Of Cape Town Mayor Gordon Hill-Lewis has denied that digital nomads are driving up rental prices in the city. In an interview with News 24, right, Hill-Lewis says this is a misconception, stating that digital nomads are high earners and they are not competing in the middle of the Cape Town property market. Housing lobby group Difunugwazi has been outspoken about remote workers and believers that this is a symptom of a broader issue, part of it being the Metro's lack of interest in actually introducing regulations to cap rental prices. Let's bring in John Luce, who's a property economist then at FNB, who joins us for more. John, thank you so much for the time. Happy New Year. Who's right?
Look, I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they zoom in on one factor and they say that's the factor that's driving up rentals. The reality is there's a whole market. As a rule of thumb, when a city or a town becomes more popular as a living destination, or as an economic, an area of good economic activity, it's probably going to live with a consequence of that is probably going to be higher property values. You have to look at some of the great city economies of the world. London, those make Cape Town look very cheap, or Hong Kong, or whatever it might be. So I don't think one can zoom in on one thing. There are digital nomads, and they will have a contribution to higher property values and higher rental values where they are a source of demand. But there are semigrants too from upcountry, higher end, more affluent and highly skilled semigrants. There are various foreigners who, for various reasons, find Cape Town and the Western Cape Coast arguably more attractive than the rest of the country. And then I think as a result of this, the Western Cape having done a lot of things right, i.e. having the better run councils and so on, it's becoming a more sought after investor destination, and it's starting to go into an era of economic outperformance, I suspect. And a better economy means more jobs and more affluence and more purchasing power and more residential demand. So a better economic performance, a more popular destination for living or tourism, whatever it might be, a lot of Airbnb investment because that's in demand. It all contributes to driving up prices. And then on top of that, Cape Town has always had more of a land supply constraint than, say, landlocked Gauteng.
Sure.
Gauteng can move out in all directions. Cape Town has the sea on a few sides, a mountain in the middle, quite high value farmland around it. So it's always had, for many decades, had on average higher property values as a result of that relative land scarcity relative to, say, Gauteng.
So should there be some sort of cap, though? I mean, I hear all of that because you make very valid points, especially with regards to the scenery Cape Town has, etc. Might be looked at as an investment proposition far greater than some other areas. But we're talking about the economic hub in Johannesburg as well of the country. You might be talking about a lot more landscape and space when you go to areas like the Northwest or other areas as well within the country in Mpumalanga. Should there be a cap?
I'm not convinced that works. Caps on various prices normally create shortages. Okay, higher rentals across, let's say, broader Cape Town, if they are to be higher than, say, the rest of the country, would probably ultimately lead to more property investment and more development of property. And as a matter of fact, in recent years, Stats SA's provincial building statistics show that the Western Cape is almost, despite being about half the size, I think, in population or less than Gauteng, and a much smaller economy, the Western Cape has had residential building activity at similar levels to Gauteng. So I think that's the you want to encourage more investment in residential property and expand the supply. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's probably not all going to be in the city bowl. It's going to be in other areas of Cape Town where you're going to have to start densifying now as well, because you can't just create urban sprawl. Land is scarce along transport corridors and alternative nodes. And I think what also is important is to try and reduce transport costs. You don't want a lot of people having to incur high transport costs. That is a problem in our cities. So you want to take a lot more of the economy away, not away from the city bowl, but where the economy grows, you want it to grow in newer nodes, decentralized nodes. So taking more of the economy to where people live elsewhere. I think that's the ultimate solution.
John,
the urban planning solution.
But what about this then? If we want to compare it to the rest of the world, of course, it becomes hard to do. But, whether you go from Hong Kong to Singapore to the United States, particularly New York, then you go to London as well, the likes of Paris, etc. All those rental prices are fairly high when compared to the rest of the world. And that becomes the big issue. Is South Africa getting to a point where its property prices are also too high, particularly considering the amount of supply and demand in this country?
Well, always debatable as to what's too high. I mean, we know we've got a housing shortage. We just know by looking at the number of informal settlements around, and that has to be addressed. But if you don't want to, we also want job creation. Half the reason, big part of the reason why we have a housing shortage is because a lot of people just don't have jobs. They don't have an income. They can't afford anything better, unfortunately, than an informal dwelling. So you want to boost your economy. You want to create more jobs. You want to reduce unemployment. But at the same time, that does often bring about higher property values too. So it's not an easy solution. But I think to cut off, if you look at Cape Town and around the City Bowl area, very popular with tourists. So there's it's not only about digital nomads. I don't think it's about a lot of Airbnb demand for tourists. Now, there's been talk of limiting the supply of Airbnb. Well, I don't know, do we want to limit tourism? Because tourism is an important part of not only Cape Town's economy, but in other parts of the country too. And we want to boost that part of the economy, and we want to create jobs with it. So I just don't see these things as necessarily the ideal solution. To me, it's about being, sort of moving bigger chunk of the economy to elsewhere in cities, decentralized nodes, long transport corridors, and creating higher density residential supply there near to those nodes, and taking the pressure off something like Cape Town CBD to be the big economy of Cape Town. Whereas you've got some places out on the Cape Flats which are literally dormitory towns with very little economy. I think that's a problem.
So that's also not to say that digital nomads are not aiding in increasing pricing, but we're just saying they're not the only thing that's increasing pricing, correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're one of they're a part of the market. I don't know how big that market is. I haven't seen any reliable statistics, so I really can't say. But there are digital nomads. There are tourists. There are Airbnb investors. The Airbnb investment is quite substantial. And then there are semigrants from other parts of the country. What about them? They're also a driver of demand. And then the locals in Cape Town who are, I think Cape Town or the city of Cape Town is probably economically outperforming much of the rest of the country. So purchasing power growth is on the up there, and more of them probably also demanding property in the city bowl. And of course, you've got a mountain and sea right around it. So you've got a serious supply constraint within the city bowl and along the Atlantic seaboard. So, I think one should expect that the property values and rentals will be very high there. The big thing is to create more attractive places elsewhere in Cape Town. I think that's the solution.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. So let's quickly just dive in. To analyze this video, I thought it was really important to really try to capture what's been really happening. I see that a lot of Black Americans, African Americans, are really slowly trying to trickle back, to Africa, and Cape Town, South Africa, has become one of those destinations. Here's a comment from this channel on YouTube. It's actually Johnny with us Finance. It's really interesting channel anyway. But she speaks about how, she's an African American who has been really touring Africa and really trying to come back to Africa, to her roots. But at the same time, she's also a digital nomad. And there are many African Americans, foreigners outside of South Africa who actually operate as digital nomads. I, for example, I'm also a digital nomad, all right? So I could also choose probably someday to come to South Africa and really apply for the digital nomad visa as a way to come back to South Africa and, probably impact more value into South Africa from the skills and the knowledge and the talents I have on a personal level, all right? But this is a new phenomenon taking place, all right? If you look at this comment here, this is actually someone, I think this is an African American as well, who commented on this video she made. It says that I'm working on moving to South Africa permanently for the first half of 2025. So you see, this is a foreigner. This is an African American trying to come to South Africa, all right, on the basis of the digital nomad visa that has actually been implemented by, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs led by Leon Scriber there. She says that, been following your family since your arrival in Tanzania. The initial digital nomad, the video, they actually moved to Tanzania from the United States and have been working as digital nomads. I think the Tanzanian government also has this digital nomad visa where, a lot of people can actually, as long as you earn, I'll be going through South Africa's requirements anyway, but as long as you earn $45,000 in tax return, $45,000, you can be qualified to have the digital nomad visa and move to the country of choice as long as you pay taxes in that country, all right? So this is one way South Africa is trying to also generate taxes and income from foreigners from outside. And this is one of the issues I see with the whole burgeoning unemployment rate, because now, this might, in a way, be excluding the South Africans themselves within the country, who actually want jobs. I saw a video yesterday, and I'll be making a video on that anyway, that some doctors in the Eastern Cape are going on a strike because they argue that they are unable to get jobs. And I'll be making another video. Aaron Motualedi, who is Minister of Health, has actually argued that the government doesn't simply have the resources to provide jobs for doctors. And these are, I think, in the video I saw, mostly black doctors who were actually going on this strike. So it's almost like a disaster that the government and these immigration, plans actually seek to go for the foreigners, the digital nomads, so to speak, and excluding those within, South Africa, and at the expense of, we know that the high 33.3% unemployment rate. If you take away those who if you consider those who have lost hope in ever finding a job in South Africa, that number 33.3% moves to 41 thereabout percent of people who are unemployed. And if you even add the unemployed between 15 to 24 in South Africa, that number jumps even more into the 50s thereabout percent. So South Africa is almost like an unemployed so to speak, a space. A lot of people are unemployed, all right? But anyway, she says that this family has helped her over the past few years in sharing the good and bad of her experience in Africa, and that she would like to see, she said, would love to see you guys in South Africa if that becomes your decision, and meet you guys in person. All right. So in other words, South Africa is really becoming really popular to digital nomads, foreigners, people who are willing to impact value by way of paying taxes in South Africa, but at the same time not being South African, you see. But this grants them a path to immigration into South Africa in order to boost the taxable income, like you saw in my last video, that as the taxpayers are leaving South Africa, South Africa seems to be attracting more of these foreigners and digital nomads to kind of like replace that gap that has actually been left when most of these taxpayers leave. All right, so this is in a way a good thing, but at the same time I'm also worried about South Africans within South Africa who are unable to find jobs and really sustain their living, and especially when they now work side by side with these foreigners who seem to be doing well in their own country of origin, and they're not able to pay rents, for example, in like a Western Cape where they've been living, and they might have to be pushed away to the villages or to the informal settlements, while foreigners end up living in these cities, so to speak, like in the Western Cape here or Cape Town. I think that might become another source of explosion we see. But anyway, if you see the comments of this other guy here, he says that for Doggy, she said that, can you tell me how you will be getting permanent residence in South Africa? I am trying the same and have found the past 2 years of attempting almost impossible. So a lot of people are really finding South Africa really popular, foreigners, and they're really wishing to come to South Africa, legally now, not illegally. These are legal people, all right? She replies that they have a new digital nomad visa. You need to prove that you make $45,000 via tax return, all right? Or you can use their critical skills visa, but this must be applied for outside the country before coming in. So you see, South Africa is getting really popular to foreigners, legal foreigners now, not the illegal foreigners, as many South Africans blame the Zimbabweans, the Mozambicans, the Zamazamas, all of this. But these are legal foreigners coming into South Africa and exploding the rental, rates in a city like Cape Town or the Western Cape, as you could hear in this video. And now a lot of the unemployed people, and I dare argue, most coloreds and blacks and maybe a portion of the Indians, might have to move to the informal settlements if this concentration of people from abroad who wish to impact value legally in South Africa populate the major cities. And, this might actually increase the level of violence and tension we see in South Africa already. Final comment here. She says that I'm moving to South Africa the later part of this year as well. I'm excited. I'm working with a relocation specialist. So there are relocation specialists in South Africa, or probably in the United States, who know how to help people relocate to South Africa, right? So she says she's working with a relocation specialist, and hopefully would have a smooth transition. And it's nice to see, she says that it's nice to see us migrating to the continent of Africa, no matter what country we decide to live in. So these are African Americans who really have had a really bitter history, with slavery and all that in the United States, and now really beginning to try to connect back to their roots in Africa. So this might be one way to really replace the gap that has actually been, left. In the last video, if you remember, I spoke about how it's been argued that 38,000, South Africans have changed their tax residency status, and also the fact that almost 1,700 billionaires in South Africa are leaving. So there's a gap of taxpayers, all right, being created. And so probably this whole digital nomad system might be one way to really fill that in. But anyway, to wrap up this video anyway, I thought to also try to understand, the whole thing with the digital nomad system and the digital nomad visa in South Africa, and what really it entails that's really attracting a lot of these African Americans to slowly start moving to popular places like the Western Cape or Cape Town in South Africa and going forward. So it says that at a glance, this is from a website called fragomen.com. It actually speaks about the South African digital nomad visa, which has been implemented, I think, on October the 11th, 2024. So these are part of like one of the issues, one of the goals Leon Scribe has set for himself, and actually seems to have implemented it. It says that at a glance, the South African government has implemented a digital nomad visa, which allows foreign nationals who earn a sufficient minimum income according to government regulations to reside in South Africa and perform work as a freelancer or for an employer outside South Africa. All right. So in other words, the digital nomad visa allows people like us foreigners to get into South Africa legally, all right, and work as freelancers, and will pay tax in South Africa. I'll be reading that. And pay tax in South Africa. But when we arrive South Africa, we'll definitely need a home to rent. We'll definitely need a place to stay. We'll definitely need to acclimatize. So these are new job opportunities if South Africans listening to me now can actually position themselves, all right? You can actually start positioning yourself as a tour guide or tourist guide legitimately, all right? Because if you probably are not legit, you might take 1 or 2 tours, and these digital nomads or tourists will get to know who you are and that you're a fraud and your business crumbles. But if you can start positioning yourselves, because these not digital nomads would definitely need rentals, they would definitely need tour guides and all that. I see already a lot of the company this guy in this video works for is a property management, property consultant. If they are smart enough, I know they already have these tour guide services within their own portfolios, and these are businesses that are really opening up possible ways for South Africans to serve this new set of people instead of hating them, instead of hating these foreigners, because these are legal foreigners now. These are not the illegal foreigners. And I really feel the sentiment of you South Africans. I see in your comments you guys are really angry with the illegal foreigners coming in from Zimbabwe, from Mozambique and all that. I really feel your sentiment. I'm also Nigerian, really proud Nigerian, all right? And I know that a lot of countries have bad eggs and good eggs. If I borrow the words of Peter Grunwald, he always speaks about the bad eggs in the correctional services. I really love that term. Every country has bad eggs. Every country has bad eggs, all right? Nigeria has bad eggs. South Africa has bad eggs. Tanzania has bad eggs, all right? But there are few people also who come from these countries who wish to do things legally, all right? Now, if you identify those few and avail yourself to serve them and not hate on them, but you see, you're opening yourself up to the abundance that's actually available, in this world, and really serve and then make, probably some finances or some good friends or some connection that could help you in life, because at the end of the day, this whole thing with jobs and jobs and jobs, sometimes jobs might not necessarily be the answer, the answer there is. There are other ways in which one can actually find a way to achieve fulfillment in life, all right? So now that these digital nomads are coming in, I think it's an excellent opportunity to really start slowly, maybe availing yourselves to what these guys might be able to offer to learn in terms of skills acquisition. Many of the African Americans who actually are moving to Africa now offering services, they're willing to train the people of Africa, to raise the bar, because they have actually lived in the developed world and they've understood how, the world works at the level of this development. And they really now want to really impact some of those services at little cost to many of these Africans. And Africans are really ready to learn. You just need to go to a country like Kenya or even my own country, Nigeria, and see how hungry people are. There's, I think, probably one unfortunate thing that happened in South Africa is this whole issue with SASSA, because maybe SASSA actually seems now to make a lot of people lazy in that mind, that whole thing with grants and all that, because in Nigeria there's no SASSA. When you get onto the streets in Nigeria, you see everyone is really hungry, everyone is trying to operate at the top of their game. Vusi Tembekwayo actually spoke about it. He said when he first went to Nigeria, he was really surprised with the hunger he saw in the people the hunger for excellence and greatness and to achieve in Nigeria. He didn't see that in South Africa. For me, as a Nigerian, hearing that, I was also surprised, and this is one of the reasons that slowly made me start motivating myself to really learn and understand South Africans and really understand what's really going on. All right. So this is one way, you know, many South Africans can position themselves as these digital nomads start flooding in South Africa. There are a lot of them that will be coming. I might actually be one of them as well. So maybe if I'm in South Africa anyway, and if you want to meet up with me or something, I'll definitely avail myself. But anyway, it says that digital nomad visa holders, they conduct work for more than 6 months within a 36-month period, and then they would require the applicant to register with the South African Revenue Service. So digital nomads have to register with SARS, South African Revenue Services, so that they can pay taxes, all right? It says that the Department of Home Affairs will then publish further details on this whole program, so to speak. But anyway, as of May 2024 last year, South African government implemented a digital nomad visa, which allowed foreign nationals to work remotely for a foreign company or as a freelancer in South Africa. All right. Now, what does it entail? It says that the validity of this digital nomad visa is for 3 years, but it's also renewable. If you stay for 3 years and you love South Africa, you can renew it as long as you pay taxes in South Africa. What are the eligibility requirements? Eligible applicants must earn a sufficient minimum income according to the government's regulation. That sufficient minimum income is actually $45,000, I think. As long as you earn $45,000 in revenue in your small business or what you do globally. And remember, I speak about the fact that the world has become a global village. This is why I want to offer a content creation course, a content creation where I take you hand in hand to probably help you start functioning as a digital nomad. You don't have to wait for digital nomads from abroad to come into South Africa to pay taxes. In South Africa, you guys have electricity. We in Nigeria, we don't even have electricity. Growing up, I knew this whole thing you call load shedding. It's a really posh way to speak about a phenomenon we really know a lot, even in present in Nigeria going forward. And you know, when it's usually called NEPA, so it was a National Electricity Provision Authority, something like that. So this was the national grid. These were the guys who were in charge of providing electricity. And when the lights were out for days, sometimes we wouldn't have electricity for days, you see. And when we eventually saw the lights, the whole city went agog. And you shout, "Up NEPA!" It was like we were hailing this organization for giving us light. And sometimes when the light comes on like that, in about 10 minutes it's off and the whole city dies down again, and then the next thing you hear is generators. So all the creativity you see that Nigeria has produced across the world, all the music talents, all the businesses, all the achievements. Although one other achievement South Africans, Nigerians have achieved is that they are travelers, they are adventurers. Many Nigerians are open-minded. They want to see the world, and you don't be surprised to see Nigerians anywhere you see. Any country you find it, you find yourself. Although there are also bad eggs, I won't deny that. But don't be surprised to see Nigerians anywhere in this world. All right, Nigerians have this adventurist mindset. They are really adventurous. So this is something I already see in South Africa. I think the whole load shedding issue is not as terrible as it is in Nigeria. So you have electricity, all right? Nigeria, MTN, for example, provides most of the internet provision Nigerians use to thrive. And MTN actually comes in a way from South Africa. So there's a really excellent, provision of electricity in South Africa, internet in South Africa as well. So in South Africa, you can function as a digital nomad. You don't necessarily have to wait for these digital nomads from abroad to come in to pay the taxes, because you can actually operate your businesses in South Africa and have global customers, so to speak, and earn probably in foreign currencies, and then pay your taxes in South Africa and live well and achieve income for yourself. This is why I say the world is moving into a different phase. All right, I saw one critique on my channel here yesterday who spoke about that this whole content creation, programming and all that is not a skill. What is a skill is to teach people to have an axe and have how to wipe an axe at a tree, and that people should also start engaging in manufacturing. I really agree. But before the ANC government or the GNU government puts those investments in place to have most of these young blacks and coloreds and Indians and even some of the whites, to have those skills in manufacturing, we can actually also start teaching people on how to really, operate as digital nomads, so to speak, all right? Because the digital world, if you watch Matrix, the movie Matrix, you could see that Neo was actually telling us that, there's a future coming, and that future would be lived in the digital space, all right? So to position yourselves as South Africans, to get ready for this coming revolution in the digital space is something I'm really passionate about, and I'm really wishing and hoping that I've already started creating some courses and hoping that some of you would really enroll in some of these courses, YouTube creation, content creation, some other minor skills I have, because I know I have a lot of skills in video creation and multimedia. I can avail some of those skills as trainings for you guys just for a little cost, and we can all grow together and then really hopefully slowly start seeing beyond this whole issue with jobs. And because I'm really getting to a point where this whole thing with depending on jobs, there has to be an alternative, all right? So this is the way I'm thinking. But anyway, for the digital nomads visa, it says that the processing time takes 6 to 10 weeks, and that basically those are just the primary objective for these nomads coming into South Africa from the United States, from other parts of Africa. They can get a visa as digital nomads. They have businesses that actually earn as much as at $45,000 per year in taxable income, and then also they can live for 3 years in South Africa and renew if they want, and if they don't, they go to Dubai, they go to Uganda, they go to Tanzania. So it actually depends on how they experience Cape Town, and this is why I really appreciate these business-minded people in Western Cape, in Cape Town there, who understand that they have to provide Airbnb services. They position themselves for this market that is slowly flooding, is going to likely flood South Africa. And this is how I expect the blacks and the coloreds and some of the Indians to slowly start thinking. I know it's really difficult, it might be easy to say, but if we engage more in these kinds of discussions, we might be able to grow to get to the point where we slowly understand how to really position ourselves in this. And this is why I really want to engage in 2025, talking more about solutions, and instead of complaining and really speaking about all of this garbage and these jargons of theories and national revolution and all that. People need to eat. What do people need? They need money on the table. They need food on their table. They need money in their bank account to really be able to live a fulfilled life and all that. So this is what we'll be focusing on in 2025 in Kwasemi, and hopefully as we analyze the political spectrum in Africa, we'll also be providing opportunities for people to grow. And I think I love this word, digital nomads. We can populate the for now, as our countries and our nations, our governments struggle to provide infrastructure and all to help us, get into manufacturing. We can also, we the youth can actually, or even the older people. I see a lot of white South Africans who are really interested in these kinds of skills. You see, we can actually populate and really start slowly operating our services, providing our services, through these digital platforms, and then slowly maybe we can transcend into some other larger structures on the ground. But we can also operate as digital nomads and slowly start circumventing this whole problem with jobs in Africa, and especially South Africa, with 33.3% unemployment rate. Anyway, I'll be stopping here. I don't want this video to be too long. What do you guys think about this whole discussion? Share your thoughts in the comments.